Understand me.
You hear me, bro?
Hey, shout out to my big man on record with it.
All right.
Yeah. The word on the street, the world is full of generation after generation. Change for the
I'm gonna do
fame.
the intro real quick. Now we are ready to sail for the horn. Way, roll and go. Our boots and our clothes, boys, are all in the pond. To be rollicking brandy dandy, oh. Heave a pole, heave away. Way, roll and go. The anchor's on board, all the cables are stored. To be rollicking brandy dandy, oh. What the fuck is up? Welcome to another edition of Sea Stories. I got one of my old buddies here from the Navy. Some of you may know him as Lieutenant Garza. Still lieutenant, right?
Yeah. I mean, for now.
Lieutenant Commander,
No.
soon to be.
Yeah, right.
Hey, brother,
Maybe one
thank
day.
you for fucking making it out
course.
here, man. Honestly, I was actually really excited to get you out here just to bring kind of a different perspective because most of the, well, really the only other person that I've had to talk with about Navy stuff was obviously my best friend Marcus, and we were both enlisted. So I think that this is going to be a really, really cool opportunity for everybody to kind of be able to see what it's like from like the other side, you know, from the officer's perspective, how you guys go about handling business, what kind of goes through you guys' minds when you guys deal with, you know, certain issues that come up, especially with, you know, junior enlisted personnel. So, I mean, dude, like, can you speak on that a little bit? Like, what is one of the biggest challenges that you feel like you've had to overcome as a junior officer coming into the Navy, but having to work with people that are relatively around the same age as you?
I mean, it's a learning experience for sure. The biggest thing was learning how to deal with people that are around your age, and especially coming in not really knowing a lot of the stuff that you need to be able to know, like, you know, how to lead them. There's, you know, certain ways, not just saying, hey, I'm your, you know, ensign, or I'm your JG, like, listen to me. And that's kind of what the chief comes in for. Obviously, y'all both know that. So it's like, that's what I'm trying to think about it. Very loaded question, a lot of stuff that happens. So I can't really, I don't know. I feel like I'll speak on more if it just kind of keep going.
Well, so this is one of the interesting things that I definitely found. Oh, mind you, he's a civilian.
Okay.
Zero understanding of our lingo. So he's going to be like the impartial
learning.
objector who's going to come in and be like, wait, what the fuck is an NJP?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about? So we'll be able to break down some terms for some audience members, because that's actually, surprisingly, one of the biggest complaints I've gotten. One, people don't understand what the fuck we're talking about sometimes. And two, the audio sucks. So we're trying to mitigate both of those fucking issues
We're trying
now.
to fix it. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, you know.
I'm still thinking about like MJP or whatever.
It's like test, hello.
Okay.
Test doesn't work. Okay. Don't mind this. It's actually a microphone hidden in here, and if you could see it, I just did a shitty job. But yeah, so NJP is like a non-judicial punishment, and I mean, if you could speak a little bit more on that, because I literally have never gone through it, but I only know the horror cases of like people that undergo NJPs, and pretty much their careers fucked.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've just I've gone as far as just sitting other captains' mass. So it's on the ship, you know, the highest person on the ship that you can go to. If you get in trouble, you're going to him. So
Calling him the old man.
and you obviously have to go through other levels of, okay, this will get past, you know, the chiefs, this will get past the XO. So, and then at that point, you're like, okay, CO this is in his realm now. Now he needs to make a decision on what's going to happen with this person. So that's a very interesting thing to sit on when when all you've kind of known is, hey, just I'll deal with this on the side in a room, you know, with a chief and, you know, my other junior enlisted or enlisted. And then it gets to the point to where it goes in front of the XO and the captain, then stuff kind of changes, and you have to kind of, there's, you know, rules on how you kind of walk in there, all that type of stuff. So
it's definitely like it's a really formal event to fucking destroy somebody's life sometimes. And it's really funny because I've seen and, you know, not to kind of get into that topic, but like one of the things that I saw, especially as a junior enlisted, was sort of the displacement of power between junior officers and senior enlisted personnel, and it was actually a really interesting dynamic to watch unfold because you have, you know, a really, really salty guy, right? A guy that's been in for, let's say, 16, 17 years, maybe made chief in like 10. So in his mind, he's already kind of like institutionalized, and he thinks he's hot shit because he's been a chief for a hot minute. You get what I mean? But what happens to a lot of those guys is that they get super fucking complacent with their job. And so they stop like developing themselves as leaders, maybe where they did in the beginning, and then they just cruise, right? And so it's leadership, I think, is like a muscle in the same way where if you don't constantly exercise it like with intention, then you're gonna eventually slip back to old habits that maybe still have more prevalence in your life because you haven't cemented the ones that you're trying to actually develop to lead people properly. You know, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges that junior officers, I feel, you know, I'm talking out of what I see because I'm not a junior officer, I was enlisted, but I saw really, really good dudes that like were my divos, my divisional officers, like ensigns, man, brand new. And an ensign is basically the equivalent of like an E3 enlisted, but with more pay and more responsibility because they're coming in pretty much fresh with the only understanding of the academy, you know. And as you probably know, the academy is like completely different from the fleet. Like once you get out into the fleet, like you start actually having to learn how to navigate one of the most important things, which I think are relationships on the ship. You know, the relationships that you have with like the people that work under you, the relationships that you have with the people that work over you.
E3?
E3, so basically like in the military we have like two ranking structures, right?
So when you come in, are you like E1?
It depends, right? So enlisted, right, are
That's
all
what
the
E
E,
stands for.
yeah,
Okay.
are all the E ranks, and it goes from E1 all the way to fucking E9. No, yeah, E9, right? And
Or
so
I guess technically E10 is like, I'm pretty sure it's a mess.
the McPon, but I mean,
It's like the one person that has it.
yeah, you're gonna. Is that even a real thing? Do you just make like? I think whoever had that first rank was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna just make this up. I'm an E10.
Technically, they're all Master Chiefs.
Yeah, right.
so-
They're all Master
but, I mean,
Chiefs, but
it's,
some hold like positional authority over the rest. You get what I mean? And
like the Fleet Admiral status. No
Yes.
one really has that anymore.
yeah,
Like the olden days of you'll see the stars in a circle. That's like a Fleet Admiral. Those are like the, you know, Chester Nimitz and all of them, the big old days of World Wars.
oh yeah. Well, when we were fucking just out here dropping bombs on motherfuckers left and right and doing all sorts of crazy shit in the Navy, there was like. I kind of think of it in the same way of like Star Wars, where they grant the Emperor like emergency powers.
Oh,
You know what I mean? And so it's like, I'm not saying that these dudes are like, you know, the Emperor of Star Wars and some evil sadistic fucks, but I'm just saying that it's kind of like the same concept where like we were at war, there was a void, somebody needed to fill a position, bam, the position got filled, a brand new title was created.
Yeah,
You get what I
they
mean?
needed to make it for certain reasons,
Absolutely.
obviously, for the different fleets and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to what you're saying about just the leadership and power dynamic difference, it's an interesting thing to have to work with because there's a lot of, at least from the chief, master chief, senior chief perspective, there is a decent amount of them, and there's a lot of them that they understand that junior officers need to learn. So they're trying to get to that point to where they know they're like, okay, I'm teaching junior officers. That's my role as a chief and above, or senior chief and above, is like, hey, I'm teaching them. But then at some point, I would say we kind of, for lack of a better term, we're kind of become a little bit more self-aware of what we're doing. So we don't need as much guidance. We still need guidance, obviously. We're still junior officers. But it gets to a point to where they need to understand that, like, they don't always need to hold our hand. But there's both to where some of these, you know, chiefs in general, like you said, they kind of sit back and just kind of get complacent, and they don't do their job as a chief. So then
And a chief is an E7, by the way.
yeah. So E7, E8, E9s, and those are the senior enlisted that are supposed to be able to help your sailors, help your junior officers, and do all that sort of stuff. But then I've even seen it on shore duty, and I've come out here, and there's a lot of people that are really good at their jobs, but then it sucks when you have those one or two people that aren't, and they are vital in getting stuff done. So say admin, if you're in administration, obviously. So if you have like an admin chief or admin senior chief who's just like, I hate the world, I hate every sailor, I don't care what they get, I don't care if they get their money, whatever, then obviously that trickles down to the rest of the ship just having lower morale because they don't get their stuff done. So then that's kind of where some imbalances and differences come when you have to go in there as a junior officer, or have to actually talk and say, hey, I need a chief to chief talk. Like, you talk to your chief and say, go talk to this chief because stuff needs to get done. And that's the good part, because you kind of know how to work it sometimes, but also the bad part, it's like, I feel, what's the word? I feel weird saying it like this, but this is the only way I can think about saying it. Is like, I'm an officer. If I say, chief, I need something done, not even my chief. My chief, for the most part, is, they're in my direct chain of command, so they feel obligated to still, make sure that I get stuff done. But if it's a different chief somewhere else, he's like, you're not in charge of me. I'm not going to do what you say. I have other officers.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So, yeah, so a lot of stuff that gets done, it's not like, sometimes if the chief is good in a different department, they're like, got you, sir, I'll get it done. Fine. But then there's times where you have to say, hey, chief, this dude's not working with me. And he's like, I'll talk to him. And then magically a day later, it gets done. So that's one thing that I guess is just a very Navy-ism type of thing to understand, is that, they kind of get into this, like, you're not in charge of me, I'm not going to listen to you, I'm not going to do it. And then I've either got to go to the chief or go to my fellow division officer who is in charge of that person and saying, hey, can you get the chief to help me out because my sailor's not getting, money, or doesn't know where his orders are, is not transferring on time, that type of stuff. So that's just one, obviously, avenue is admin. And that's where you'll see it a lot, is that they just kind of feel like they're in charge, they have the power over all of things admin, they're going to do it. But there's some good admin shops and there's some bad admin shops. And that's in my experience of maybe 5 admin shops that I've had to work with. So it all just depends.
So when you get to the point where, like, let's say you receive some news like that, right? What kind of mindset do you kind of prepare yourself to get into when you need to, one, approach your chief with something serious and maybe you don't have the best relationship with that person, and 2, what kind of mindset do you get into when you have to deliver bad news to your junior guys as an officer?
It's weird. So I guess I can go back more to just kind of being the understanding that you're their division officer, and it's not as much, it's like you want them to respect you, you don't care that they like you because stuff needs to get done, but at the same time you don't want them to hate you because then they won't do stuff. You want them
or they'll do it, like they'll gun deck it.
Yes. So
gun decking basically means like fucking
just rough, yeah.
You say you're gonna update your computer and you don't, but you write down that you did. It's like, hey,
you're
texting. Yeah, it's like you're texting one and say, hey,
I thought they were doing
update
it
my
like
computer.
in a bad way, but they don't even do it.
Or they just don't do it, because it's like saying, hey, text me when you're done updating my computer, and then he doesn't do it, and he's like, yeah, I finished it. And it's like it's
that kind of shit.
That's but like bigger things on the ship, which is a bad thing. So that's why it's a very bad thing.
And it's especially permeant in in the engineering field, which is actually kind of hilarious, only because they deal with so much life-saving equipment. But I can't even and I'm not saying all engineers, but I feel like they're like the one division, or like the one group of people on the ship that just cannot afford to even have one rotten apple in that sense. Because it's like, you look at something like what happened on the BHR recently, that big ass fire. And this was something that I was actually talking about recently with Marcus, was when I was in ER09. ER09 is just basically like, the engineering repair division number 9, right? My whole job for like that duration of 9 months was literally to maintain fire station equipment. So like around the ship, there's all these stations that are basically like meant to be operational at any given moment. Like if a fire breaks out in like his space where he works, where he's dealing with a ton of computers and like a bunch of like high-tech stuff that needs to be constantly cool. Imagine if we lose power on the ship, something happens, it overheats, shit catches on fire. Right outside of the door, there's a fire station. If I, as a maintenance person, right, decide I'm lazy, I don't want to, you know, I know that I did this maintenance like a month ago and it's good, and then I'm just basing my actions on that assumption, and I don't actually go and check, one, that's gun decking, and two, that's exactly how you fucking kill somebody. And so you don't think of it like, oh, so if I don't put silicone in this thing, somebody's gonna die. People like to take it very literal, but that's just because they're lazy piece of shits. Like, the reality is, no, they're probably not gonna die in that moment. But if you're on the fucking BHR and a fucking fire breaks out, and then you go to use a fucking fire station, and you can't even turn the fucking, like, the wheel to, like, actually pump water into the fucking plug, guess what? All the fucking dudes in that hallway got one choice: to either fucking run or, like, that's it, or they die, right? Because imagine if the fire is blocking you off and you were perfectly, imagine if it wasn't even that bad and you were perfectly capable of using the station, if it worked properly, to not only put the fire out, but save everybody around you, save the equipment around you.
Yeah. And
then you can't do that because some fucking dude just decided, nah. You get what I mean? And that's like one of those trickling effects where
you weren't on the ship for the flood, were you?
The 2016
I'm talking
one?
about like Hercules and that part where whatever. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, were you here for the flood? It's like, no, but no.
The flood, the 7 days and 7 nights. I do remember the fucking. Well, you were there when we pulled into. When did you leave the ship?
February 2019.
Oh, okay. So you didn't get to Norfolk with us.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So holy shit, dude. You want to talk about fucking one of the craziest nights I've ever been out at sea? So we're pulling into Norfolk, Virginia, and as fate would have it, the worst fucking duty station that you could probably put a sailor in, which I think that like recruiters deliberately put people just to like fuck their lives up, because it's like, honestly, it's not a horrible place, but it's so close to DC that it has that East Coast mindset that everything is super anal, everything is really, really strict. And it's weird as a West Coast sailor going to an East Coast command and then realizing, oh shit, not everybody's super laid back here. You know what I mean? And so it was funny because we're on the ship, we're coming back to Norfolk, right? Because we were just in Japan for like almost 2 years, like a year and 7 months or so. Yeah. If you want to say 2 years, you would count all the patrols that we did, the ports and all that other shit. We're coming back to Virginia, and I shit you not, it felt like we were straight up in a fucking like Category 5 hurricane the entire fucking way pulling in. Like, the forecastle, which is like the forward end of the ship, has these two spaces that are just wide open where they like literally just throw the anchor out of. Nobody decided to close those fucking spaces, so we're in this fucking hurricane and a bunch of ocean water starts pouring in there, and all the engineers respond to a fucking flooding casualty at, I shit you not, bro, 1 a.m. So every goddamn motherfucker in the berthing, in the male berthing, which is where we all sleep, is literally in their racks, like with their eyes wide open, just rocking back and forth, like the ship is doing this. It literally sounds like we're getting hit by torpedoes on the side because the waves are crashing so violently to the side of the ship that it sounds like explosions. And nobody got a lick of sleep that night. And so the second they call like a fucking flooding casualty, I know for a fact almost every single dude was in their rack going, oh dear God, we're gonna fucking sink out here. And I literally opened up my curtain and I'm like, I'm getting a head start on these motherfuckers, bro. I know how this story ends and I'm not getting caught down here. If I'm fucking dying, I'm dying on the flight deck. I'm not dying in the fucking berthing, so you just drowning. Went up to work. Yeah, so I just get up and put my shit on, go to work now. But well, we got close. So that happens, right? And we're all there and there's that tension in the air because you can feel that there's something happening around the ship. And then 30 minutes later, no. Man overboard, man overboard, man overboard, starboard side. All hands, fucking
how would they
make reports to the division officer. I'm like, dude, the second we heard those 3 whistles, every fucking dude in the berthing, like, Jason Statham rolled out of their fucking rack and landed on their feet, and we're running out. And I'm like, I've never seen a response time like this. Like, we actually probably broke a record. The CO might have actually been impressed.
Yeah.
And I remember we get up there, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck is going on tonight? We have a man overboard. We have a fucking casualty. Like, the ship is sinking. And so now I'm thinking, okay, the water came in, something happened, an engineer got sucked out into the ocean, and that dude is dead. Because let me tell you, bro, there's no way to find this motherfucker, man.
Is that really what happened, though?
No.
Okay.
You know what happened?
I was like,
we had a fucking. You knew Fuentes? I think she was like a BM, or she was like Undez, short little Cuban girl.
Oh, okay. She was with like Supply.
Yes. She was with Supply, and then she went over to Navigation, I believe, or I don't remember. I might be misquoting it, and I apologize if you ever see this. But yeah, she I think she called the casualty, and what they saw was a buoy out in the ocean. But she's not wrong to do that. It just pisses everybody off. Oh, yeah. That's all it is.
But at a time like that, that's one of those weird things where I've heard it before, and I forgot where I heard it, but it's we go through those all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is probably more a little bit for them, but we go through these drills all the time of just man overboards, and then it's just like in the middle of the night, and we're like, we know it's a drill. Seas aren't even that bad. We'll do it. If anything, there's some that are actually a drill, some that are actually real, but a lot of people are just kind of lackadaisical, and whenever they'll get to their stations to say, hey, I'm alive, I'm not one of the man overboard, whatever. But at a time like that, it seems like it would be a lot more of whenever you're like, oh my god, these seas are really bad right now, it's definitely someone's out in the water right now. So stuff like that where they're going to move a lot quicker whenever stuff's actually happening, instead of just being like, okay, let's just walk to our whatever stations.
No, bro. This was all happening 24 hours prior to us pulling in. Like, it literally felt like Poseidon was like, this ship will not dock. Like, that's literally what it felt like, because smooth seas the whole way. And then the last 24 hours before finally making it home after 2 years away, it's like fucking like the craziest fucking dude. Everybody that I was on the ship with, and I have videos on my phone, everybody that I was on the ship with that had been in the Navy for a hot minute, dude. Like, these motherfuckers were there for this 2016 deployment. These motherfuckers were there on other ships. Some motherfuckers had been there since the 90s, bro. And they've pretty much experienced it all. They even said, this was the worst storm that I've ever been through. When I tell you that we had desks about the size of that, and about just as heavy, flying through spaces. Like, the whole ship the next day, oh my god, I am gonna have to hit some people up so that I can edit it into this one. So final day of deployment, and needless to say, it's been one hell of a fucking ride. He's got a huge dick, ladies and gentlemen. And so let's recap what happened somewhere at around 02 this morning. Flooding. We almost died! Oh shit, the table! Jesus Christ!
How much did you get on that?
It's been recording this whole time.
I told you we almost died. Hold that desk, man.
I cannot afford to get. Oh Jesus! Let's just yell. We decided to do swing checks right now. No big deal.
No big deal. NBD. Boys will be boys. Oh, god damn it. Are the backpacks okay? Alright, that's all that matters. So, all that shit over there used to be right here, flipped over. Fucking desk lost its legs. It's been trying to take everybody else's legs since this morning. To send me the pictures of what the ship looked like the morning that we were pulling in. The mess decks, which is basically like where we eat food everywhere. All the food that was in the fridges, all the doors were open, all the food was on the floor, all the fucking rice was everywhere. Like, all the eggs were cracked on the floor, all the CSs had to clean all that shit up. We ate like fucking dry ass toast the next day for breakfast because there was no food.
So why didn't anybody get up at the beginning? Like, you all kind of just waited. Because I was waiting for you guys to book it, and I'm like, and you said like everybody was just waiting.
What do you mean?
They're
At
just
the
kind of
beginning,
sitting
yeah.
there. Just because the seas are bad doesn't mean that they're not just like
You guys,
that something bad's happening.
Well,
Just bad
yeah, yeah,
seas.
I'm assuming-
Bad seas will lead to something like
you
that.
can't be walking around and stuff.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
for
yeah,
bad
there's-
seas you
yeah.
can, but most people don't like it.
Listen,
It's hard to walk.
They're never gonna tell you that you can't like walk around the ship. It's like me telling you like if you're in your room and we're both living in the same house, me going like, nah, dog, you can't go to the kitchen. Like, you get what I mean? Like that kind of shit. Like, nah, man, you gotta stay in your room. Like, listen, man, we got.
Okay.
They're mowing the lawn outside, and so like
But you
I
said
really
there was like
can't
tension in the air, and so that's why I was
Well,
like.
there was tension in the air because we had never experienced a storm like that. So everybody was on edge. You could feel it. The tension wasn't from like confrontation. The tension was from fear.
Right.
Right? You could feel it in the air, bro. There was something
Yeah.
that was like everybody was on edge. I was on edge, and most of the time I don't give a fuck about anything. But I was on edge, bro. Like, the second we heard that man overboard, I'm telling you, dude, I sprinted out of there because all I thought was, this fucking ship is sinking. I am not going to die in here with these smelly-ass motherfuckers. If I
Because it's like
fucking-
one, and then there's gonna be 2 people overboard. There's gonna be 3.
Yeah.
And then the ship's just pretty much down at that point.
No,
That's what I would be thinking.
Yes,
That's
and so here's the crazy part. One of my friends, do you remember Adia Segura? Segura, she was like a EM3, I believe now. Like Mexican
Maybe.
girl, like really pretty smile, like really peppy. Like she was like the only engineering girl. Like I don't know if you remember, but there was like a group of chicks on our ship that I'm pretty sure were living like a Mean Girls fantasy out in their heads. Because not that they were mean girls, they were. I mean, I talked to a few of them, like Clark, and she was like, I mean, as far as any interaction I ever had with her, she was really sweet, you know. But a lot of guys on the ship viewed that whole little clique as like the mean girls, you know, because they were like the hot girls on the ship that all hung out together. God knows if they even had anything in common. But like that
I feel like
was
I would have recognized the name if I would. Because I know the little clique, I guess. that
Right.
you're talking
Well,
about.
you recognize the face
So-
for sure. But point is, like, she, super sweet girl. She, we were talking the next day, and she was like, the ship literally rocked to like 15 degrees last night, and basically, if we would have reached 17, we would have capsized. So that's how fucking close we came to literally ending all of our shit.
It's bad.
Like, if we would have capsized, dude, for sure, man overboard. For sure, fucking emergency, fucking everybody go to your life rafts, because you have no choice. What are you gonna do? Stay on the fucking ship? If it's me, dude, I'm going straight to V1, throwing on like 4 float coats for no fucking reason.
Dude,
V1
swimming,
is like where you get
swimming
your-
in that would
So
be
V1
terrible.
is like where I used to work, right? And so all the jobs on the flight deck are basically like spread out amongst separate divisions that hold separate specific tasks.
How far are you? Like, how long does it take you to go from like where everybody was like sleeping, where the like pretty much the bunks? to,
For
like,
me,
to
it's
the top?
close. For me, it's like
No,
right
no,
outside
please
of the little
speak on
hatch.
that. So, tell-
For
you
me,
know
it's
what,
like a little hatch
describe
that goes outside,
exactly-
and there's like I'm pretty sure from right where I was living, I could just go out this little hatch, like a little circle door,
Yeah.
and then I just go out there, and then it would be. I'm pretty sure the life rafts were right there.
So within 30
or I could just jump off
Oh.
into the water if I wanted to.
He
But
really
him,
could.
he would have to like go up two
My
two
dude,
floors,
I am fucking
and then he would have to
flying
like
elbowing people on
Yeah.
the way out, because dude,
because they're small hallways,
imagine-
probably about this
yeah.
wide. So
I
it's
imagine
like
it's like a bunch of like floors.
so ours, luckily, so different divisions will be like deeper down. For example, the engineers slept under us, right? And so think of the ship like a diagram that goes like this. This is ground zero, and then there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4.
Oh.
Right? And so that's what separates top side from like bottom side.
Okay.
Right? So imagine this is the flight deck right here.
So
This
where's
is
the
like
outside?
the out. What do you mean?
Like the outside, like the top of the ship.
On like the O3 or whatever. But
Okay.
point is, like, we're sleeping down here, and then there's like another division sleeping under us, right? And so we got to climb up like well, for us luckily, 1 ladder well just to make it onto what would be ground 1. And then in ground 1 we still got to make it up to ground like 0, 1. And then we got to go to the O3, which is where the flight deck's at. And so like then you're outside.
so
And
just
then-
imagine all that traffic
Yeah,
with
so that's
what I'm
people
saying. How
like
many of you guys
frantically
were-
trying to go up.
I mean, it depends, man. How many people did we have at a time? Like, if we had a deployment and we didn't have the Mew on board, roughly what, maybe 900? 900?
Probably
of us?
without the Mew, yeah. I think fully loaded with the
We're
Mew.
like 1,200, 1,300 people, easy.
Yeah.
Because the Mew
Or
is
north
the
end of that.
Marine
So-
Expeditionary Unit, and they usually bring like around 400, 500 Marines on board.
So there's 1,200 people taking the same route you're taking?
Yes,
For the most part.
for the most part. I mean, there's like,
How wide are these hallways? Like,
dude,
They're not big.
as wide as literally like this bed right here to that wall, to the wall, from the bed to the wall.
I
That's
just
it.
imagine ants, like freaking.
Dude, that's how it feels. And
Yeah.
now on top of that, right? You're thinking of a hallway like right down the fucking like right. Imagine this hallway. Now add a bunch of random piping on the outside, random electrical boxes. So there's all these sharp metal objects that you're also trying to avoid and like run in between.
So how long did it take you guys to get up there?
Oh, dude. On
takes
average, like
forever.
7 minutes.
7 minutes?
And even so, like
That's
even
not bad at
so,
all.
even
dude.
for
That's
the
a long time.
it
dude.
is because a lot of stuff can happen.
A
in 7
lot of
minutes.
times.
Well, that's
happen in
true,
7
yeah, but I'm
minutes.
just thinking of 1,200 people going through all this. I'm like, I mean, 7 minutes.
I mean, yeah, it's not too
And,
bad.
also,
that-
like,
and that
7
is-
minutes.
now-
Imagine
now
man overboard for
granted-
7 minutes.
Now, granted,
Yeah.
if we were to get a man overboard response time of 7 minutes, we would be hot shit. I think the closest we ever got was like 12.
Oh yeah, people. Because like I said, people move slow.
People move slow.
People, they're just like, whatever,
Some
it doesn't
people
matter.
straight
Like,
up, dude. I knew a guy in the berthing, and this it kind of ties into like one of my biggest issues with the Navy, at least while I was in, was how they go about treating certain. I don't want to call them malfunctions, but they're not diseases. So like certain things that happen to sailors, right? Where like a sailor, like let's say he's just been on nights, then on days, and on nights, and on days, so his sleep schedule's all fucked up, right? So instead of them just being reasonable and be like, let's keep this dude on one sleep schedule for a little bit, they'll keep him on doing crazy shit like that, and then he'll complain, and they'll go to medical, and they'll just pump him with drugs. And that is literally the Navy solution to everything. It's just, here's some fucking drugs. You can't sleep. Here's some fucking Benadryl, whatever, melatonin,
yeah, you've probably
whatever.
seen memes on just the internet in general where it's just like Navy doctors, and it's just they're gonna it's like take some Advil, take some
It's
Tylenol.
like a dude coming in with a broken leg, and they're like, here's some Advil, change your socks twice a day.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
and they use like specific vocabulary that sometimes like, oh, I don't get it. I'll just keep like scrolling.
Oh yeah.
Does the E1, E2, E3 does that apply to all the branches of military?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. They're called differently, but essentially like the nomenclature for them are exactly the same. And
The Navy, the Navy's a lot different than everyone else, especially like officer ranks. Like
Yes.
the Navy, we're pretty much us and like the Coast Guard are the only ones that really have the Navy names. Like I'll be a lieutenant in the Navy, but in the Air Force, the Army, and the Marine Corps, I would have been I'm a captain. But a captain in the Navy is like an 06.
Yeah. Like
So
the
it's
captain
different.
runs the ship.
It's different
Or a-
nomenclature.
Yeah, a captain in like the Marine Corps typically runs like a division. You get what I mean? So he's like kind of occupying like his current position and job,
Yeah.
where he's in charge of like all the junior or like all the enlisted that are involved in unspecific job or task. You get what I mean? So for example, like he worked a lot with like information systems and shit. So like all the people that work with information systems, they're like the first officer in their chain of command would be him, right? And then there's somebody who he answers to who works a little bit above him, who's like the fucking because you're the divil, and then you have your fucking remind me again. I've been out for a minute.
I mean, I have my department head.
Yeah, your department head, and then the department head answers to basically just like what the XO.
Yeah, the XO and captain.
The XO and the captain, so there's only like 3 other people really above him.
And you're
as
still
far as,
enlisted?
Hmm?
And you're still enlisted?
No,
I'm-
he's an
I'm off.
officer. Yeah.
I'm
So
still
there's
in, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Did you say if he's still
Enlisted.
in? Or? No. He was never enlisted. So
Oh.
basically, the difference is right.
Technically, fun fact, I was for a year because so when I went to
What?
because I went well.
I didn't fucking know this.
So no,
Story time.
No, it's I mean it's literally nothing, but it's the way that it's structured. Because when I went to the prep school. So whenever the prep school, on paper, the whole year that I'm there, I am considered enlisted. So that goes towards my Navy time. So right now I'm only at 5
Wow.
years in, but because I went to prep school and I was enlisted for a
So
year,
you're 6 years in.
I'm 6 years in. More money, it's better. But
So-
it's
Like
the
40
it's the
times.
one
Wait,
it's the one
what was,
yeah.
What was that prep school like? I'm actually really curious to like.
Uh,
what was the whole process of going from prep school? Then you went to OCS, right?
No.
No, you didn't go to OCS.
So all academy grads don't go to OCS. We graduate from the academy and then we go in. Because for
OCS
us,
is
because
like
for us,
officer candidate school,
officer
right?
candidate school, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's because we've been doing Navy things, talking Navy, understanding all that stuff, learning about, Navy terminology, learning about sailing, all that type of stuff. That we've been doing that for 4 years. That they don't make us go to OCS. OCS is just the officer equivalent of boot camp.
For the
So
people
they're
that
just like
have
they're just like
zero military
yeah,
experience.
they're like
whatsoever.
you have a college degree. We want you to be a naval officer, so we have to send you to OCS, and teach you how to talk Navy, how to be in the Navy, how to if you can't run yet to run, how to be in physical shape, that type of stuff.
Yeah,
So I'm actually really curious about that because I always thought that the standards for officers as far as like physical fitness were held really high, because the only examples I ever had to go off of before I went to the ship was all the officers I met on San Clemente Island. And there were a bunch of fucking animals, bro. Like,
Dude.
all the officers I met were... I only had one... I had one Divo, and she was an air traffic controlman prior. Like, 10 years enlisted air traffic controlman. Now she became an officer, transferred over... Like, what would that be considered? Like, it's not navigation, but...
For what?
For example, like what Air Boss does.
Mm-hmm.
What would that be considered? You're not like a blank officer. You get what I mean? Like, there's the navigation officer. There's like air officer. I don't know. Whatever.
No.
Point is, this lady was in charge of like the air terminal on San Clemente Island. So that was the only officer I ever knew but never met. The ones that I did meet were a bunch of officer candidates that were going through SEAL training. So they were on phase 3 of SEAL training on San Clemente Island, and that's where I was stationed. So all I knew was, holy shit, dude, to be an officer, you gotta be a fucking beast, bro.
False.
False. False. So
But-
speak on that. Like, what was that experience like? Because you're actually... I know it's actually super obvious, but he is like way stronger than what he looks. And
Yeah, right. But
No,
so the
very fit.
so the
Example of an officer.
oh god, of what an officer's supposed to be. No, so at least from the time from the prep school and from the academy, they give us standards that are very high compared to everyone else out in the fleet. However, their goal is to send us out to the fleet to be, these examples of. So, our standard is like 10-30 mile and a half, and then like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. So pretty much max. Or actually, our standards are a little bit less. I think it was like 60, 70 sit-ups.
And this is
and
like
then,
the minimum to pass.
Yeah, and like 60 push-ups. But that's. I think it was a little bit higher. Honestly, it's been like a couple years. But our standards of us passing at the academy are like, I think it's outstanding low. So PRT standards, it's like satisfactory.
Physical readiness test.
Yeah. So it's like satisfactory, pass, and then is it excellent, outstanding, right?
Yeah.
Excellent, outstanding. So then normally, our standards leaving the academy, we're all like high, excellent, low, outstandings. Because that's just how in shape we have to be just to graduate. Because if we don't pass those tests, we don't graduate. So then for guys, we're running, I was running like a 9:45, 10-minute mile and a half, which is fast. I'm not doing that now. I'm heavy, but I'm still. I can.
It's all
still,
that weightlifting, son.
I can still run. I mean,
Yeah.
but that's the difference. Is they try to prepare us to go out to the fleet to be the example, to be fit. It kind of goes awry just because of the stressors of the job. Then all they do is they'll, work, eat, sleep, try to get some lifting in there. Some people who are actually dedicated actually work out all the time. You'll see the difference in people who actually make time to work out, and some people who are like, they just don't really work out at all. Maybe they'll get something in once or twice a week. But
that's
a
how
big
we met,
thing.
right? In the weightlifting class. Well, no, we knew each other before that, right?
I mean, probably. I remember for sure that's when...
Because I remember we talked when in Sasebo for the first time, and I was lifting, and Travis was like recording me, and then I remember like you said something, and I was like, oh, okay, like, and I didn't know that you were an officer, because like for me, bro, I don't fucking see rank if I'm in the gym. In the gym, if I'm in the fucking gym, I'm there to fucking train, get in, be intense, get the fuck out, right? And so anytime I meet anybody that I'm like, I can vibe with this motherfucker. He's a fucking alpha. I don't give a fuck your fucking rank. This is all a fucking permanent job. And I get it. It's a weird thing to dance because when you're in, there's this, it's not unspoken, but it's definitely extremely frowned upon for an officer to be friends with an enlisted person.
I didn't know that.
There's like straight up segregation because they
Yeah.
don't want there to be any conflict of interest. They don't want you like possibly getting any special favors. And the ironic part is that none of that ever happens when it's just two dudes. But then you see that shit all the time with the females.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but it's like it's the fucking truth, you know? And in their defense, some of them kind of have to, because I've been a witness to females making the conscious decision to kiss ass because the guy they're working for is a flat out sexist. Like a flat out sexist, like fucking has the lowest opinion of women ever because they come from like what they would consider themselves the old guard, you know, very John Wick like, where they're like cemented in their ways and they're like, oh, women don't belong in the military, like all this other shit.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, they're the same motherfuckers who are out here sleeping with the junior enlisted. It's like the ultimate level of hypocritical behavior. You see it, like I watched it all unfold in front of me. So then I began to understand. I'm like, okay, well now I can see it from a woman's perspective coming into the military, a man's world, where you're trying to advance, you're trying to get ahead, and like you fucking hate the fact that like I'm not saying that you have to suck dick or anything, but you hate the fact that you're gonna like you use your charms so that you don't get fucked over. That's the biggest thing. Is that like with men you experience it all the time. I don't know how it is for officers because you guys have a different dynamic since you guys don't answer to chiefs and you don't answer to first classes. You get what I mean? You deal with just officers. But when you're dealing with like chiefs and first classes and shit, as a junior guy, I remember like literally sitting there and watching these dudes like deliberately try to seduce the new girl. Like, dude, when I tell you like chiefs and first classes are the biggest offenders of this shit, where they're like higher ranked enlisted people that have been in for some time, but like most of them are like fucking married, dude. They got kids, they got their wife, and then they have an open girlfriend on the ship that everybody knows about. Like not even hiding it, dude, like straight up some shit out of power. And like they're just dating these chicks, right? And they're the biggest offenders because if you are like a chick and they don't fucking like you, they will fuck your life up. They'll send you TAD to the shittiest jobs. They'll give you the dumbest tasks. They'll make you the paper bitch. Like they'll literally, like all the females that worked in our office, it was just females. A guy could very easily do that job, and vice versa. A girl can very easily learn and train and do the job that we were doing. You get what I mean? Because that it's an equal playing field, really, at the end of the day. But the people that make it unequal are the dudes that are just trying to stick their dicks in everything, and they have that power. You get what I mean?
It just
So they're
depends. I think it depends sometimes because, like, I've honestly, in my shop, I've had maybe 2 females my whole 2-ish years there. Because one was a first class, and
So
she
I
really
know you
knew what
can't
she was
really,
doing.
Like, I know that you can't really like talk too much about what you do.
Yeah.
But maybe like what you can, just so you kind of gets a little bit of an idea.
Mm-hmm. So mine's a little bit more technical of a job. So mine's obviously dealing a lot more with computers,
just a chimp
networks like radios, anything having to do with like ones and zeros, radio waves. That's my forte of what I do in the Navy. So when I was on the ship, that's pretty much what I was in charge of. I was in charge of the IT, so like the information system technicians that did computer stuff. So there's like a computer side and like a radio side. So it's like doing all the ones and zeros, making sure they work. And then the radio side was the opposite side that I wasn't in charge of. And that was like getting it off the ship, radio waves, satellites, all that type of stuff. But I still knew it. But so I was in charge of them. And it's just, from my experience on the ship, and even here, it's a decently male-predominated rate. I mean, from what I see. Maybe it's because probably like females aren't don't want to be on the ships as much. I don't know. But for me, from the 2 shops that I saw, there really wasn't that many. It was obviously probably like 85% male. And that's probably a lot of the other shops too. But mine was, I had an IT1. She was really good. And then I
said pour it down. Chipping, breaking through the siege of disbelief that's taught my team efficiently. So we can and will achieve most indubitably. Don't let deficiency few, ooh, all of whom I do pursue. Let their dreams the season tombs. Ooh, what is wrong with you? Ooh, me not do the utmost true. Also, no need for food. Never thought to stop, even if the apocalypse had risen and confidence tarnishing. I'll still be positive until I no longer do live. I no longer do live. So primitive, accumulating digits. Who would have figured I pray for this to come quicker? My blood is only got thicker. My neck is so shoot the shot.